back. James Harden right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey.
Joel Embiid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap Podcast. It is a rainy Monday evening here in Philadelphia. It is me and Sean Bernard as usual. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, not too bad. In the dredges of the offseason, it feels like. So other than just the new Kevin Durant rumor every 10 seconds, there's really not much going on. So some cool Pro-Am stuff starting to wind down. Saw that the Crawford, disappointed to see that canceled after halftime, considering like all the before halftime, actually, all the big names that were there. But I don't know. I'm ready for sports to kind of kick into gear again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the lull of the entire year for sports. We got the Phillies making a playoff push. But aside from that, some lousy, crummy preseason football. Maybe you guys are keeping up with Hard Knocks, and maybe that's the only thing getting you through, like me. But we're moving here. We're closing in on the end of August, which means we're just about 2 months out from Sixers basketball. And I couldn't be more excited at this point. I don't know about you, man. I am chomping at the bit to see this team play. We're going to talk a lot about that today. We'll talk about the Ben Simmons situation and the agreement that the Sixers and Ben Simmons came to. And then we'll also go into the Sixers schedule a bit, as that was released in the middle of last week as well. But to talk about this team in general, man, I know we've touched on it maybe a couple times before, and this is a conversation I've had with a couple of people over the last couple of weeks. We're assuming at this point this team is basically set in stone. Barring a massive Kevin Durant trade, it seems as though this is probably what they're going to walk into training camp with in the next couple of weeks, and probably play this first couple months of the season with as well. So maybe let's not get into is this the best team that Joel Embiid has had around him. Maybe let's push that question off till the end of this segment. But just how are you feeling with that team in general? And what are the strengths and weaknesses that you see so far?
Yeah, I love the concept of just building a complete team. And that's kind of one of the ideas that's been bounced around with the Kevin Durant rumors. One of the reasons that I'm like kind of sit on the no side of going all in to pull the trigger on that is we've just repetitively seen like the bench not hold up, the supporting cast not hold up. That I'm excited to see just a complete team around Joel, see guys that fit, guys that are well balanced top to bottom. I mean, we're talking about D'Anthony Melton is going to be the best bench player that I think the Sixers team has had in years. And probably D'Anthony Melton will be the best bench player that the Sixers have had in the entire Joel Embiid era, which is awesome. And that's great. Daniel House, a great addition. Just like well-fitting pieces. It feels like we've always kind of had like those big chunks of the puzzle, but never to like the surrounding pieces. So that's what I'm really looking forward to this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't state it enough. And, I had a conversation with my old basketball coach actually this weekend. And, it is this level of it's Kevin Durant or, this complete team. And I want so badly to see a complete team around Joel Embiid, and James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. Like, I really do think that this team has levels, and they're very strong at all of the levels that they need. When you talk about defensively, an anchor of Joel Embiid is always going to, something we've touched on a million times. Joel Embiid anchored defense is always going to be a very solid, if not one of the best defenses in the league. But you add PJ Tucker. You've seen the improvement from Tobias Harris. We've seen a lot of improvement from Tyrese Maxey. James Harden is what he is, and when he does put some effort in, there's some good defensive qualities there, and he's a high IQ player. But then on top of that, you add wing depth. You add a really good defensive guard in D'Anthony Melton, one in Daniel House. And you just didn't have this before. Like, I'm thinking back, I'm racking my brain trying to think of anybody that was productive off the bench in the last few years. And the only name I can come to is like James Ennis. And like, I loved James Ennis, but he's not good. So like, when you're looking at this team, it's just, I almost feel like a sense of calm. Like, not that they're, I just feel like they're going to be good. They're just going to be good and solid. And when the time comes, I do genuinely believe they have that next gear, and they have the superstar talent to bring themselves from this whatever second round team they were last season and push themselves into the upper echelon of teams. So I just can't wait to see this team play.
Yeah, it feels like they're kind of like staying out of the craziness. And like as much as they well, as much as there's like unhappiness, people moving everywhere, the Sixers are just staying in their lane, which is like I get the frustrations of like they obviously haven't been past the second round of the playoffs since 2001, and that like there's still a lot that needs to happen, and that like we want to see that this year. But I think staying in the course and like really the two X factors on this team are A, what James Harden has if there is another level, and B, what Tyrese Maxey keeps growing into. And so much depends on that. We know that Joel Embiid is the centerpiece. We know what he can do on both sides of the court. And honestly, I still have talked myself into him adding more layers to his game as well, as crazy as that sounds. And but he hasn't proved me wrong yet. He's added layers each year, and I think that's going to be the case again. So I do want to ask you, James, what would you consider like a successful season for James Harden moving into this year? What are you hoping to see from him with a full offseason to recover and a full year to get healthy? And what kind of changes do you expect to see?
Do you mean like statistically, or just like in general?
You can take it whichever way you want.
Well, I guess I'll give you a little bit of both. Why not?
Okay.
I mean, I think this is what I'm thinking. He's going to be pre-hamstring injury James Harden from last season. And if you go back and look at what he was doing early on last season with the Nets, and even late in the prior season, like the discourse, on top of James Harden right now is just so brutal. It's either he's still the GOAT or, he's washed. And it's neither, right? We can all understand that James Harden is not going to be putting up 30 a night. I genuinely do believe there's 24, 25 a night in there. I don't know if that's what it's going to be, just because I don't know if it's going to be necessary. His role on this team is a facilitator and a secondary scorer.
Yeah.
And that's okay because he's going to be an elite player in both of those categories. He's one of the best passers in the game. He manipulates the game of basketball more than anyone we've ever seen. I loved Ben Simmons and what he did as a passer. James Harden is wickedly better, like just a much better basketball player in that sense. He does more in the pick and roll, which has, not only elevated Joel Embiid, but alleviated the pressure that's put on Joel Embiid every time down the floor. That also opens lanes for shooters. He has two of his guys playing next to him. Again, PJ Tucker knows exactly how to play next to James Harden. Tyrese Maxey is only going to get better on catch and shooting, as we saw his incredible improvements towards the end of last season. And then Tobias Harris showed a lot of growth in the catch and shoot department as well. So, passing, facilitating, that's all going to be there. And we saw all of these players make improvements just by playing alongside James Harden. I think what you consider a successful season within Harden's case is if he's able to score in those moments where we really need him or where we need to get a bucket. There's just times it looked like he really struggled, to get downhill or to create space on a jumper, or even pass up mid-range shots. And we've seen a lot of the Rico Hines runs where it looks like Harden's really put an emphasis on that part of his game, which is incredible. So I think a successful season is somewhere between that 20 to 24 points per game. And if he's able to do that on an efficient mark and shoot decently from three, I'd love to see some improvements on his catch and shoot threes, because I think he'll have some of those opportunities as well. I can't wait to see him play basketball. I think we got like just this little like sample of him last season. And it was this on and off, will he, won't he type of relationship with him last season. And I do think there's a different level. It's not MVP James Harden, but he's going to be damn good. And with this team, I think it's just going to kind of like he is. I wish I could think of like a really good metaphor for it, but he's the center of what's going to go on here. It's a thankless job what he's going to do, facilitating the basketball, but he's so good at it.
Yeah.
I think he could average 11 assists per game next year,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, like 11 or 12. Like I think he's going to lead the league. So I'm so excited, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, I love all of that. He can definitely sleepwalk into double-digit assists every night.
Easy.
It is so crazy just the IQ he plays with, and the way he sees the game and can see passes developing in a way that like is up there in the best of all time as far as playmaker and distributor, and just being capable of doing that. So I mean, to circle back to the initial thing, like people talk about like there's no longer a Houston James Harden. Like that's fine, because the Brooklyn pre-hamstring James Harden was still pretty damn good. And we're talking about what I'm hoping for him. I don't get too caught up in statistics. I like it's crazy. I think like a 20 and 10 is like a pretty casual as for him. Like I'm just pretty confident that he can hit that ceiling.
Yeah.
Like, we're brushing that over like all that hate as if those aren't like very good numbers and stuff that very few players can do. But when looking at just aspects of his game that I'm looking for, there's three real areas that I'm hoping to see improvement in James Harden. One is I just need to see a little bit of shake. I need to see him being able to beat a guy off a dribble, even when it is like a top tier defender, even when it is like a Scotty Barnes on him or whoever. We've seen a bunch of that in the Rico Hines runs. I need to see him just be able to get by or get enough separation to create some sort of solid look for himself. In addition to that, I need to see the mid-range come back a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of the anti-Morey ball. He's gotten away from that for years with the Rockets. It's obviously everything at the rim or at the three because that's what the analytics say. But in reality, that's not always how basketball works. Sometimes the shots that are available are what you have to take. And if you can connect at a high rate at a mid-range, as we see with Joel Embiid, who is one of the best in the league at it, that's still a useful shot and a high-quality shot based on percentage, based on the points per shot, still ranks extremely highly. And the third thing is, you mentioned this as well, is the catch and shoot three. I just have to see him be comfortable just catching and shooting because that's such a natural basketball motion and something he's gotten so far away from. And I get like the step back is his thing. That's for sure the exclamation point in his game. When he hits the step back and gets the and one, that is like the showstopper for James Harden. That's like his moment. But you just have to be able to do both. There's going to be open catch and shoot looks, and he has to be able to capitalize them in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, looking at him and what, the evolution of James Harden has been interesting, I guess, to say the least. And again, I think looking at his time in Brooklyn is another weird transition. Going from that Houston team where really down the stretch of that team, he was the only one creating or doing anything and scoring. And it's been a while since he's played with, I guess he played with Russ and Chris Paul. And whatever you want to take from those two experiences with him, he hasn't played with anybody like Joel Embiid. Maybe ever. He did have Dwight Howard, but that was, post back injury and whatever. So I think him transitioning into this like full-fledged point guard and flashing all of this skill that he has creating and facilitating the basketball is something that I really don't think should be an underrated skill of his. And it feels like somehow it is. Like I think a lot of people look at him and say if he's not scoring 28 points per night, he's not doing his job. Where I think if he's not putting up 10 to 12 assists a night, he's not doing his job. And I think in his case, he's really bought into that because he knows it's what he does well. And I don't know, man. I think with the way this team is built, it makes up for his inefficiencies defensively and where he lacks because the rest of the team is very solid on that end. And again, I think James Harden as a defender, the joke has always been how bad he is and how he doesn't try. And trust me, there's a lot of times where he doesn't. And it's, he's a little bit lazy on that end at times. But I think, we talk about it a lot. He can play down. He can guard the, a 3-4. He likes to play in the post. It's less movement for him. He has good hands and he's a smart defender. He's like one of the best rebounding guards in the league. Like there are things that he does do well in that department as well. He's going to be averaging nearly a triple double, if not one. I'd love to see that. That'd be a great thing to have happen. But, and his development alongside Joel Embiid and their chemistry together is going to be something that I think is going to take a lot of people by storm. I know it wasn't by much. It was marginal, but he did increase Joel Embiid's points per game in their time together. Embiid was like, I don't know, like maybe 0.8 points higher in that span. It's hard to improve on 30 points a night. So even if that improvement is there, it's still there. I think he just makes everyone around him better. And this team is going to be like, he's the glue. Like it's funny to say that because I know a lot of people have questioned, his commitment and his leadership and all of this and that. He is the glue to this team, and he's shown nothing but, leadership in terms of his actions this summer.
Yeah, I know, 100%. And I think one of the interesting things about James Harden is we've seen this in the past. Like when he's locked in, he's very committed. He is a good teammate. He does his thing. When he's not feeling it, like he was at the tail end of Houston, like he was at the tail end of Brooklyn, he's very much out. He's very much going through the motions, doing that thing. I think when he got traded to the Sixers, he flipped into like the locked in switch again, but he's now at a stage in his career where he can't quite just flip the switch again. Like he obviously didn't quite have the pop. He was a little out of shape. He wasn't in the prime of what he needed to be. I think with a full offseason of him actually caring, of him having the mentality that he wants to win, he seems just re-energized by this team. That breathes good news to me. And I think in the past, like he could just flip the switch like that and become like casually be a guy like, oh, here I am as one of the top 5 players in the league, really casually. So I do think the narrative has swung so negative that he's become a very underrated player around the league, which is is awesome to see, and I'm excited to see it, the league take notice of that as well. But I do think with a full offseason of him being refocused, him taking care of himself, really committing to everything, I'm excited. I mean, like the pictures that we're seeing of him this offseason, he looks like skinny in a way that like we haven't seen in years. So I'm thrilled to just see what exactly he has left in the tank.
Yeah, and, I don't know who the reporter was that asked him about, what to say to Philadelphia fans. It came out the other day. He said, "Philly knows how we're coming. We're
Oh,
we're
yeah.
we're chasing a championship." So, that mentality. I mean, it just hasn't been there like that, bro. It just has not been the same. And he's bringing a different energy. And the reports that came out earlier this offseason with him and Sam Cassell, and Cassell saying that Tyrese Maxey has pushed him, and Harden saying that he's re-energized him in a way that he hasn't had in years. Like, there's just something brewing. Like, there's just something there. And with the additions that they've made, they really didn't they didn't lose anything. They only got better. Like, they didn't lose any key pieces, right? Like Danny Green, but you switched him right out for PJ Tucker. And at this point in their careers, they're both old. I think I like what PJ Tucker brings a lot more than what I think I like what Danny Green brings, especially, unfortunately with his injury. But like, you did not get no part of this team was a subtraction at all. None.
Yeah.
And you've only added not just to your starting lineup, but also to your bench. So I think the signs are pointing the right way. I'm ready to get hurt again. And if that's how it, like, a lot of people are always like, why do you even believe in the Sixers? Why do you even get worked up about it? How am I not supposed to, man? How am I not supposed to look at this team? James Harden is a Sixer. James Harden is playing for the 76ers this year.
Mhm.
I forget like how insane that is. He's gonna go. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's gonna be a top 5 scorer that's ever touched the basketball. Like, he's a legend. And we get to see him play basketball in a Sixers uniform. So I really just am so excited to watch this team come together. Because I know a lot of those guys are putting in a lot of work too. Did you see Daryl Morey's shirt that he wore the other night? He was at the Eagles like practice or whatever, and it was like the Beavis and Butthead shirt, but it was Joel and James Harden.
I did see
It's
that.
so funny. I love that he's just like a fanboy of those two. Like, Daryl, he just loves those two guys with his whole entire heart.
Yeah, I love that Daryl is just kind of like a normal guy. Like, I love that he just kind of
Yeah.
at times just steps out and just does his thing, which is very cool. I do think he's one of the more down to earth like GMs and one of like the rare guys that can like
He's real.
yeah, he's real. He can walk that line of like being a normal human being versus like being up in his like away from the fans, being like that kind of thing. So I do
Yeah.
think that's very cool about him.
Yeah. I mean, he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
He's only been incredible since he's been here. I know a lot of people are, you know, he was kind of handcuffed. Like, let's not forget the position that he got this team in. He inherited a pretty shitty situation and turned it around pretty quick, or kept them afloat, should say.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to dive into some schedule talk?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
All right. I don't want to get too deep into this just because I do feel
Yeah.
like it's overblown. Like everybody plays everybody. There's 82 games. They got to film with people, but I do think we should acknowledge some of it. I do think there was something a little bit different with the Sixers schedule. It feels like the Sixers are kind of put on the NBA map this year. They have 34 of their 82 games in the prime time. A lot more just national games, playing on Christmas, playing the first game of the season. So I guess we'll just go a little chunk by chunk, but the first 2 games at Boston in the first game of the NBA season, and then at home versus Milwaukee. Getting tested right out of the gates. What are your thoughts on that?
They hate the process. They wanna see us fail, but it's a good test. It's a good test to see where they are. I can't wait for them to lose one of those games and have the entire world fall apart in Philadelphia, because you know people are gonna overreact. But like you said, it kind of is what it is. Everyone's got to play everybody, but I love it, man. I love that they're even if they are the villains, which they very well might be. More than likely they are the villains. I kind of love it. I kind of love being in that situation, and they deserve recognition. They're going to be one of the more intriguing teams. Even outside of just Harden and Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and all the other guys that come along with it. So those 2 games, you want me a prediction? They're going to win both. That's my prediction.
All right. I like it. I like it. Yeah. Starting off against Boston and then against Milwaukee, both on TNT national games. We're either going to have Philly fans ready to be planning a parade or people calling for heads from the offseason already.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an all or nothing right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Looking past it a little bit, they have 3 back-to-backs within a 9-game span. They play a back-to-back in Toronto. There's a couple games in between there. They play the Spurs, Pacers, blah, blah. I'm going to skip over a couple just to get to the
Yeah.
interesting stuff. But play back-to-back in Toronto. Then they come home, or then they go to Chicago, play the Bulls. Then they play the Wizards in a home and home. And then they play the Hawks in a home and home. So pretty tough span of 3 straight back-to-backs there. But I don't know. It feels like there's like a grueling beginning and a grueling end. And in the middle, it kind of lightens up a little bit.
Yeah, there's always going to be those tougher and weaker parts of the schedule. Like, I don't know, maybe soon in these next coming weeks we can kind of dive into these other teams like the Bulls and some of those other teams that are like faux contenders, maybe aren't necessarily there yet, but teams that could be competitive. But I don't know, man. I think they're all going to be good. Like, I don't know. I've been getting so excited to sit down and watch the Phillies every night. I know that they just got delayed a little bit tonight because of the rain here in Philly, but sitting down to watch a Sixers game on a Monday night, like it really just changed my entire week. So I just can't wait for that. Back to backs. I know it sucks for the players, and I'm sure Harden and Embiid will miss their fair share of those this year because of the emphasis they're definitely going to put on health going into the postseason. But so be it. I love those games. I'm excited to just feel the energy, feel pissed off at the Hawks when I see them play. Hate the Raptors and their fans. So it's all going to be good.
Yeah, 100%. We'll jump forward a little bit to Tuesday, November 22nd, which is at home against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, James, do you think Ben Simmons' back will hurt this night?
I did have a conversation the other day with some coworkers about this. I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he does not play in that game. Um, I don't know, man. I don't know I don't even know what's going on. I don't even want to make like any sort of statement about it because like Lord knows what's even going on over there right now. So, maybe he's not even a net by then. Who even knows?
Yeah, it is weird. All signs from that area seem to be that he's planning on taking the court again, picking up workload. But it is such a bizarre situation that like I'm not gonna believe it until I see it. And
Yeah.
just Brooklyn's such a weird case right now that like I have zero expectations for what that team will be at that stage. I've said this when like trying to make a couple like rankings for the Eastern Conference. Like they could end up the number 1 seed and they could end up like out of the playoffs, and neither would surprise me this year.
I mean, they had everybody last year and they still were a play-in team.
Yeah.
So like Kyrie could just not decide not to play. Kevin Durant may or may not be there. Who knows with Ben? Like, I don't know. It's impossible to say. And I mean, I'm not going to be one of those guys that just like feverishly roots against Ben Simmons. It is what it is. He is what he is. If he gets back on the court, good luck to him. But I'm really not afraid of the Nets this year, regardless of who they roll out. I don't really care.
Yeah, and I do want to put out there, I am buying some Kyrie Irving stock this year, and as much as Kyrie is a weirdo, I don't think he is fully unaware. He is obviously opted into his player option, so he'll be a free agent this year. The COVID restrictions have been lifted, so he can play every home game. I think this is a year that Kyrie is going to be on his best behavior, playing his best, and in search of a major payday at the end of the year.
Sense.
So I do think,
or he might just retire.
Yeah, can't rule it out. But as much as Kyrie is a weirdo, I still think he's like self-aware enough to have that mindset. So I think it's going to be a good Kyrie year, and then he maxes out his deal and then gets back to his nonsense after the fact. But that is kind of my expectation, is that he is that somebody that should be counted on this year. Looking ahead to Sixers schedule stuff, they get a little bit of a break in the middle, kind of like I mentioned. Not that they don't have good teams pop up here and there, but back-to-back against the Magic, play the Rockets, Hornets, a couple Pistons, a decent amount of teams that are solid, winnable games. They have a back-to-back against the Pistons as well. Then we
don't sleep on Detroit.
Don't sleep on Detroit. That's fair. They are building. They have 2 back-to-backs against the Magic, which is interesting. They play the Nets again at Brooklyn, February 11th. And then shifting towards the end of the season, they do kind of get on a grueling stretch. The way the season ends, they go back-to-back against the Bulls. Then they play at the Warriors, at the Phoenix Suns, at the Denver Nuggets, versus the Dallas Mavericks, versus the Toronto Raptors, at the Bucks, versus the Celtics, versus the Heat, at the Hawks, and at the Nets. That's a brutal stretch to end your season.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can look at it one of two ways. If you want to, I will do my fair share of spinning everything into a positive light. I'll try to do my best here as well. Um, those games are either not going to matter because those guys aren't playing, um, depending on seeding and record and all of these things. Those games are either not going to matter because Embiid and Harden, are just resting or playing sporadically throughout that stretch, or you're getting a great test going into the playoffs and you're kind of all gearing up into getting into playoff shape and working into playing really good teams. Whereas in years past, we've all looked forward to, you know, these easy end of the year schedules and playing the Magic twice at home before the playoffs start, and either Joel Embiid playing for 15 minutes or not playing at all. Um, I think it's almost better to play those good teams towards the end because you should be hitting your stride. That's when you should be trying to get into fully, game mode, going forward, going all out. And we've seen them take some pretty like in years past, we've seen them take a while to get into that playoff atmosphere and that playoff effort. I'd rather see them play the Bucks and the Nets and the Nuggets and the Suns and whoever in order to get prepared to go into the playoffs because it's go time. Then there's a lot of teams that will contend. I believe the Sixers are one of them, so it's better to get moving towards that and that March, April, May than it is to like sleepwalk through that part of the year.
Yeah, totally agree with that. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, I've turned away from the mindset of I feel like the Sixers and other teams around the NBA, but do so much like matchup based and like evaluating who they're gonna play or who they're gonna match up with, and like maybe taking games off so they get a more favorable matchup, that kind of thing. Like that's just like coward behavior, and I
Yeah,
would so much rather. We've seen the teams that do this just get bounced from the playoffs pretty early. If you're doing that, like you don't have faith in yourself as a team to beat whoever, and that's what the playoffs are
right.
about. So I think the Sixers have to turn that page over and move on from that. So well, it will be a nice test to end the season, and like you said, there's a decent chance like a fair amount of these teams are resting guys and getting ready for the playoffs. So it could even end up working in the Sixers' favor if that's how things shake out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hopefully, it's I don't even want to think of that far ahead, man. I don't know who
Yeah,
even knows what we'll be doing then. You know,
yeah, long
we'll
ways
still be
away.
talking about the Sixers. We'll still be either complaining or being super happy, but that's the one consistent.
Yeah. The last thing that we do want to talk about today is Ben Simmons getting his money, and this has kind of been something that hasn't been talked about enough. I think it's kind of been like a behind the scenes, under the ground kind of topic of discussion is like the ongoing lawsuit between Ben Simmons and the Sixers, and some of the clarity on it is the Sixers had a front loaded deal with Ben, so they paid him a decent sum of money already before the season started, and they were trying to get that money back, which I think did complicate it and something I didn't realize in my head, and I think a detail that matters in it. So it wasn't so much of them withholding Simmons money, it was them trying to get it back, and I think that matters for context. That wasn't all of it, but that was a good chunk of what the topic of how much was given is. And then this is coming from Woj, his article here. It says that Brooklyn Nets all-star Ben Simmons and his former team, Philadelphia 76ers, reached a settlement agreement on the grievance Simmons filed to recoup a portion of nearly the $20 million withheld from him as a result of his failure to play games. Both sides agreed to a confidentiality on the exact financial settlement. So what are your thoughts on Simmons getting money at all and just this whole situation being put to an end?
I'm happy it's over,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I don't give a shit otherwise. Like who cares, man? It's not your money. It's a billionaire's money. It's a guy that owns a $5 billion corporation's money that however much he paid him, they paid him. Are the Sixers in the wrong for not wanting to pay him? Absolutely not. I think whatever money they were able to withhold from him, I think is probably fair, considering the situation and the way it played out and the way that he behaved throughout that whole situation. Um, I am not surprised that it remains confidential. I do believe there's a tip of the cap to the Sixers side, um, because I think that is a nod saying like, okay, take your money, take whatever it is, and let's end this, let's clean it up, let's make it fine. Because had there been a number there, Sean, had there been a number put on that,
Mm-hmm.
all hell breaks loose from whatever side. And I just want this to finally be over. I've never seen a player get talked about as much as Ben Simmons gets talked about for anything other than basketball. The guy hasn't played in over a year. and he's in the news every single day. It's to a point where I'm like, I feel bad for the guy to a degree. I wish that he would stop getting heckled in candy stores, personally. So like, I'm happy it's over, and I think we can all kind of just like bury this and move on, because again, like no matter how shitty it was or how terrible he was towards this city or this organization, it landed James Harden here, and he's super locked in and committed here. So I think it's all time that we all move on from this like crazy ex-girlfriend that we had. It's time to move on. She's with somebody else, and we've got a new girlfriend as well. So we can all kind of take those wins and losses as you may, and just move it along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went on vacation last weekend. So I got this notification as I'm sitting on the airport getting ready to take off. So that gave me a whole flight to just digest this and galaxy brain it and think about it. So my brain went a couple of different directions with this. So on one hand, like I think the Sixers are just done with it. They just wanted to be
Yeah.
settled. Like whatever, take money. Let's move on. Let's just get this. Let's just be done with each other. I think that's kind of the mindset there. I think the fact that obviously Tyrese Maxey is a clutch guy and that like that's a tie that, like, regardless of what the hostile feelings toward Ben are, you're still talking to the same exact people, Rich Paul especially, with like dealing with it. So like that matters in terms of you're still kind of like saving that grace, because you don't want to ruin that, because Tyrese Maxey is obviously a future part of this franchise and a very key piece moving forward. And just everybody loves him. Can't ruin that. So I think that also played a role in them wanting to be done with it. But there's also the part of me that was like, this is the situation where the NBA is on the Sixers side, that they don't want the precedent to be set that guys can sit out and still get their money. That I was thinking like you kind of go to war with that, because the NBA is against you on the other looming thing this offseason in terms of the tampering with the PJ Tucker thing, with the potential James Harden back end deal or whatever is being investigated behind the scenes. So I think there could have maybe been done more of like a we scratch your back, you scratch ours kind of thing. And this totally could be me reading way too far into it, but I don't know. I do think it's interesting that there wasn't a number released, because it just says a portion of the 20 million. Like how much that is very drastically changes, like, I guess, what the perception is from everybody involved. And I think the NBA is probably happy that's staying silent too. Like if he got the full 20 mil, that's a pretty big deal moving forward. And obviously that wasn't his entire contract. His cap hit was 30 something. I want to say 32, but I forget off the top of my head. So it's still a portion of it. But him getting that massive chunk to literally play 0 seconds of basketball last year and show up for 1.5 practices is not the right precedent that the NBA should be wanting sent. So I don't know. I do think it's at the end of the day, it's both sides are ready to be done with each other, move on. But it is just strange how long this drug out to just kind of be settled like that, I feel.
Yeah, but I do think it's like the confidentiality in itself, it changes that story from being like a 3-week long story, an ordeal, to like a one day where people are like, oh, Ben got paid, and then they forgot about it the next day. I really do think it's just better for everyone to just wipe their hands clean and call it quits on that whole ordeal. And whether Daryl Morey's playing chess, which it always does seem like he is, maybe everything he does seems intentional, right? Like it seems like he is just like enough of a troll to intentionally do things to poke buttons or pull legs, whatever you want to call it. So maybe he is playing the game, playing alongside Adam Silver and saying, well, I'll do whatever you need me to do right now. Just get off my back. I could see that. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But I don't know, man. It's fine. It's something I just don't really think much of it. We don't have to think too much of it. And the confidentiality, while it's kind of like it leaves a lot out there, right? Like it leaves a lot to be desired, because there's no closure here. There's no like, oh, he didn't get that money back. And it's like if he got $3 million back, that's a portion, right?
Yeah.
And we'd all be like, okay, like 3 million out of the 20. But if you got 18, it's like, okay, why? We'll never get to know why. Maybe that'll come out in 20 years. So it'll be a documentary or something, a 30 for 30. And we'll find out then. But until then, it's kind of just, let's just finally drop this one and move along.
Yeah, no, there absolutely will be like a 8-part 30 for 30 on this process and the Sixers thing. So it is nice that it's finally settled. The Ben Simmons era in Philadelphia is officially put to rest, and that's all we have to do. We don't have to think about him ever again until November 22nd. So I don't know. It feels good to have that wipe clean. I'm sure everybody's happy to move on with that, but I don't know. Just such an odd situation from start to finish here.
Yeah, can't make this shit up, man. Really
Mhm.
cannot make this shit up. But if you don't have anything else, I think we're all good to wrap it up here.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. So if you guys haven't already, make sure to drop a subscribe on the YouTube. Working on growing that some more. Got some awesome new fun stuff coming out through PickSwap and everybody in general. So make sure to follow on all the socials. Tune in for everything. And me and James will be getting back with you soon.
Absolutely. Catch you guys.